Welcome to Beyond Your Job, the podcast where we talk about work, life, balance, and everything in between. I'm your host, Iris Clapper, a former attorney and writer with a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. I'm also a certified professional coach and consultant. So while that's a mouthful, the takeaway is that I'm fascinated by the psychology of work and its impact on how we live. This podcast was born from something I kept seeing in my clients, in my friends, and definitely in myself. You can be thriving in your career, but if you're burning out, it doesn't just stay at work. It permeates home life, marriage, relationships, and of course your emotional and physical well-being. During each episode, I sit down with professionals from diverse industries to gain insight, inspiration, and a few laughs while having honest, thoughtful conversations where everything is fair game as long as they're up for it. I'm so happy that joining us today is Dr. Jim Reilly, who was raised in Pittsburgh. He is a graduate of St. Joseph's University, where he played varsity baseball and was named a Verizon Academic All-American, and the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. He completed residency and fellowship training in internal medicine and nephrology and a master's in health policy research at the University of Pennsylvania. An award-winning physician, educator, and leader for nearly 2 decades, Dr. Reilly has served as Allegheny Health Network's Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs since 2018, overseeing all residency, fellowship, and medical student training for the system. His mission is to foster the most supportive learning environment possible for trainees, preparing them to thrive in tomorrow's healthcare system. He is married to his high school sweetheart, Beth, and they live in Pittsburgh with their 3 children, Connor, Claire, and Grace, Teddy, a goofy Havanese, and 2 fish whose names he forgets. Welcome, Dr. Reilly. It is such a pleasure and an honor to have you here with me today.
Reese, thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity. I'm really, really excited. This is my first ever podcast, so
wow.
This is really a new experience for me. I've got the butterflies going. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, you speak in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, so this should be a piece of cake for you.
I hope so.
Let's start with something maybe not easy, but obvious. Did you always know you wanted to be a doctor? And I'll give you the follow-up now. Not just a doctor, but you've created a whole career way beyond taking care of patients. You take care of hundreds and hundreds of people on a daily basis in a very different way. So take us through that process a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up with a doctor in the house. My dad was a general internal medicine physician for nearly 40 years and did it at Allegheny General, the place that I now am. So I really did grow up with a clear picture of what it was like to be a physician, right, on the daily. And my first really formative experiences in the profession weren't in any formal educational setting or, talking to a career counselor. It was really just kind of following him around when I was a kid and hanging out in his office and, being around when he was talking to patients on the phone or talking to the residents about a case on the phone. And so for me, it was very natural to have that as part of my life. And I could always envision myself doing something like that. And I think at the end of the day, there was probably nothing I wanted to do more with my life other than play professional baseball, perhaps. Well, not even perhaps, but so it really was. I didn't have that, what am I going to do with my career, kind of question or crisis that many of us experience. I dabbled a little bit in college and potentially thinking about pharmacology or pharmacy as my profession, but I really I loved science and I wanted to help people, and that was, the natural path for me. I have a lot of professionals in my family, and many of them are teachers. And so I think that in addition, even folks that weren't teachers as their primary profession, as school teachers, were teachers, mentors in whatever their field was. So again, it was just just part of the tea that I was steeped in growing up, that it wasn't, while it was great for me to be taking care of patients, and I certainly still love it, it didn't feel complete for me unless I had someone to share it with, someone to bring along with me, someone to help get to the next step. That is, whether it was in medicine or any of the other things that I did growing up, being there and helping others along was just a really important part. It was just kind of, I didn't question it. It was just kind of what we did. So even before I knew what specialty I wanted to go into in the profession, I knew I wanted teaching to be part of it. And that was really solidified then in terms of making a career out of it during my first year of residency, during my internship, when, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about these themes, but I was hit really, really hard at the very beginning of my intern year with, what you and I know as, imposter syndrome, and, getting to Penn, my dream program, put way too much pressure on myself, and really wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it, but I was supported so kindly and effectively by my program director, Dr. Lisa Bellini, who's still one of the best leaders and mentors that I've ever had, and she's still at Penn in a much larger capacity. But it was really how Lisa supported me through that solidified my desire to do that for other people too. And I knew at that point that was what I wanted. So even as an intern, that was where I was headed.
So you work in a pretty high pressure environment, and for the listeners out there who don't know, Allegheny General Hospital is quote unquote the pit. Yes, the one from HBO Max. And in many ways that show is pretty true to life. So that is a high pressure environment, but I'm sure Penn was as well. So take me back to that moment of understanding or realizing what imposter syndrome is, and maybe having an aha moment about you not being the only one who feels that way.
Yeah, and again, just kudos to the folks at Penn. When I was doing residency, this was before any of these topics people were aware of it. There was very little science behind it, especially in the medical profession around this, and in healthcare professionals. And these were things that just got swept under the rug, or were denied or suppressed or whatever. And Lisa, far before her time, was really, really forward-leaning in these areas around physician health and well-being, mental health, and feeling like you belonged. So, what Lisa did for me was she gave me the opportunity when I was back on my feet to get a small group together, to just say, hey, if you're struggling, she gave us a room after, at the end of the day, she gave us pizza, and we invited folks, and I wasn't sure who was going to come, but boy, a lot of people came.
That's amazing.
It was remarkable to finally hear from other people, oh my God, Jim, I feel the same thing too. I'm so sorry that you felt it so intensely, but you're not alone. And it was pivotal for me, number one, to understand that I belonged. But number two is that I could use these experiences and how I got through to help others, which was just the icing on the cake at the time.
Which is incredible for the time. I mean, we're talking about 2 decades ago. And it's not that we didn't know what imposter syndrome was, but it wasn't mainstream. That phrase, that term was coined in 1978, but it did take a long time to come into the mainstream. And the prevalence in healthcare fields is staggering. The statistics are just astronomical. And the rub is that you're talking about incredibly highly accomplished, brilliant individuals who don't feel like they are, but they are by all external measures. And they experience this debilitating self-doubt, which makes life and work incredibly difficult. So in my experience, many physicians are perfectionists. And my question to you is, how do you balance striving for excellence and not chasing perfection? Is that even possible in the medical field?
Yeah. Well, it's really challenging, Aris, and we put pressure on ourselves, but also the pressure is real. These stakes are high, and the things that we do, even if they're not immediately life and death, are profoundly meaningful for the people that we serve, right? We want to get it right. We didn't get into this profession to do a bad job, right? So, and I think that the process of just getting into and through medical school and residency places such a high premium on being the best, right? So many people who want to pursue the profession can't, they don't stand up to the rigor academically. And there is a culling of that, if you don't have the grades, if you're not at the top of your class. But then once you've actually hit the work, right, and that usually is that transition from medical school into residency, you don't have to worry so much about that anymore. The goalposts are in a different spot, and it's very, very hard to let go of that. Where I have, as far as especially imposter syndrome, but also my perfectionism, which I absolutely have that trait. It's my competitive nature to want to be the best. Is for me, it has been always about self-talk, right? So, imposter syndrome is for me, my experience has been I never gave myself the credit or the grace for the excellent work I did. But if I had been talking to somebody, a peer friend or a mentee, who did exactly the same things that I did in exactly the same way, I would be speaking to them in a very different way.
And that's key. That is
right?
Key. We should pause on that just for a split second. We speak to ourselves in ways that we would never speak to someone else, and especially
Right.
not someone that we like and respect.
So when I'm doing it the way I hope to, and when it feels right, whenever I'm in a new situation or something that is stretching me or I'm out of my comfort zone, I really have learned that it's vital to treat myself like I would treat my best friend, my mentee, and say like, look, here's where I, because I do this for my folks. I tell them, sometimes I have to tell them really hard truths, but I say it in a way that like, also, you're capable of hard things. I wouldn't be giving this challenge to you if I didn't believe in you, that you could do it. So when I'm in a tough spot, personally, I have learned that one of the things that when I'm doing it the best is I'm giving that same lesson to myself. But it really, for me, has been about the self-talk. It's about the chatter. The negative thoughts will always come, but it's what you do with them that matters. But that takes a long time.
It takes a long time, and it takes a lot of practice, because the negative thoughts most often are automatic. They
Right.
are how we've learned how to wire ourselves, and then they come at us. And the trick is to stop, acknowledge it, and ask yourself if that is realistic. I call that examining the evidence. A lot of practitioners use that term. Is that true?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And that was a lot of the skills that I learned during residency, going through a pretty, long and very fruitful course with cognitive behavioral therapy, was hardwiring those responses. because if any, I know this as well as anybody else. When you're in a stressful situation, your performance, kind of regresses to your level of training, right? When you're under pressure, it's your habits that carry you through, and so if you've wired yourself to slow down and think it through, if you know that you have the ability to create that space and you can trust that that space can be created, then you can get through a whole lot of stuff, right? And even in my profession, there's very little that's truly life or death in a minute, right? But for those things, we have algorithms, like ACL, like BLS, right? CPR, these are things we are trained for, so that when it's really, really important to just kick in at a moment's notice, it's trained. The rest of it, we have the ability to slow down. The problem is that we don't see that in our, there's something about the perception that is distorted when it comes to like looking within internally in ourselves.
So is it the intentionality about it? Because medicine is such high stakes, and when I work with perfectionists, we train being good enough, making a small mistake that is low stakes, which for perfectionists is very hard. It's very hard for me. Knowingly sending out an email with one typo and just sitting comfortably with that. That's a really hard task for me. I've had to learn how to do that. In medicine, I think that's a little bit harder because of what you're dealing with. So is it about picking those moments in an intentional way?
Yeah, and it really is. And I think being intentional about it, but also being accepting and really embracing the fact that there is way more uncertainty, even in medicine, than we think at first, at face value, right? There's so much medical evidence out in the world, but the folks that we see on a daily basis really don't act like they've read the textbook. There's so much that, patients present with, in real life that isn't covered directly in the textbook. There's still a lot of inference, application. You have to, you take the evidence, you take the physiology, the principles, what you've learned in a perfect, like kind of in vitro environment, you have to apply it to the real world. So what I do with my residents is I say, like, look, these are the three options. I know the evidence enough to say, I can't tell which one is going to be the best. Two of these are, in my mind, absolutely acceptable with the information we have. And now we have to make a decision. So, and I've got your back. However this turns out, we've discussed it in advance, but the choice is yours. And I love you either way. And if it turns out bad, it's okay. We're both going to learn from this. So for me, the intentionality is the intention to do the best you can, but the intention in advance to learn from the outcome. A huge portion of the decision that we have to make is that we need to move forward under conditions of uncertainty. We've eliminated the unsafe options. There's multiple safe options. There's no way to know what the optimal option is. You got to move forward, but learn, and that's the progress you make.
And accept.
So you can learn perfectly. Yeah, you can accept and you can learn perfectly, even if your performance is not perfect.
Do you think that being a premier athlete and having that incredible and competitive edge has informed the way that you practice or think about medicine?
Oh, absolutely. Baseball was really my first love, and it remains one of the greatest loves in my life. And also getting to see my kids play the game now. But baseball's a very interesting game. And even at my best, I mean, one of the things that I picked up from baseball from the beginning is that, I think in retrospect, my imposter syndrome followed me in a whole lot of spaces, but I never felt like an imposter on the baseball field.
That's interesting.
Never felt like an imposter on the baseball field. It was where I felt I belonged. I was a smart kid growing up. I was precocious. My vocabulary was a little bit out there. I was freaking the kids in my neighborhood out a little bit. my parents did the best thing ever for me, which was put a baseball bat in my hand so that I could relate. And it was actually, I belonged through baseball, you know? It was where I felt most at home. It was where I felt my best. And, you know, what I learned from it is just remember, you know, the best baseball players in history, if they batted astronomical batting average of 400, that meant they still failed to do the, you know, to get the outcome they wanted 60% of the time, right? So what I learned from baseball was, you know, it's really hard to be a perfectionist and live with it in baseball. You just have to accept that even under the best of circumstances, once that ball leaves your bat, it's not up to you anymore. And so I do think that it was a great lesson and curriculum in how to control what you can in terms of your process, but the ability to accept, like, maybe the center fielder just made an amazing play and you got robbed. And if you do anything different, don't do anything different, because if you do it the same way the next time, chances are pretty good that it actually will work out. So you had to learn very quickly about what was a process issue, or did you do it right? You just had bad luck. And it's not because we suck, it's because it's hard.
It is hard.
That's what I tell, yeah, and that's what I tell our residents when it comes to diagnosis too. It's like the you know, when you are comfortable with the reality that even in internal medicine, 15% of the time, Maurice, our initial diagnostic impression is not what it turns out to be. And it's, again, and I tell them this, it's not because you're bad at this, it's because it's really hard. So you have to work with a deliberate, intentional humility that it's not a reflection on your abilities. You have to understand what's under your control, what is available to you at the time in terms of the information, what should you be expected to know, and what do you have to discover as the patient's course unfolds. Very similar. So yeah, those lessons from playing baseball have really helped me in medicine, and all of the things about being a teammate, right? You know, playing your position, you know, knowing your role, trusting others to do their part, learning to let go and not try to handle everything yourself. You know, in medicine, when your week of service is over, you sign out, right? Or you go home that night, and you're in the shower, and you're like, oh, did I replete the potassium? Oh my God, the patient's gonna die. Somebody's covering that patient now. You just if you did a good job signing out, you can let that go, right? So those were lessons that were really ingrained in me for a very long time, and I'm grateful to baseball and for that.
And you bring that to the graduate medical program every single day. You're responsible, like I said, for hundreds and hundreds of medical students, residents, and fellows. And your philosophy is centered around don't just survive, but thrive. And I wonder what goes wrong in other programs that don't share the same philosophy. And I know that there are so many out there. What are you doing differently at AHN?
Yeah, I think that, Reese, in general, our profession in medicine and within medicine residency training is really still on a path and a journey of inclusivity, right? There is still something about the feeling of exceptionalism that we cling to. And that even when you've made it, if you're junior, the pressure is still there to prove your worth, to prove that you do belong. And it's not anything intentional. These are amazing human beings, but collectively, that's still the hidden curriculum. It's still the culture. You know, okay, you made it this far, but this is really hard, right? And I think that, you know, we also respect and defer to our traditions, sometimes a little bit too much, and we romanticize, you know, and the stories we tell. I don't think anybody really reads the book House of God anymore, and between you and me, thank God for that. But I read it, and like, this stuff used to be romanticized. When I think in this day and age, and I'm glad that people do recognize or feel or give me the feedback that we're among the leaders in this space in terms of leading the charge to make it better. But I do think you have to start from, hey, you're here because you're excellent. There's nothing more you need to prove. Now your job is to focus on the person under your care and the team around you with the same mission. And it doesn't matter what your test score was. You can find that information, you don't need to draw it from your memory. Your job now is to look at that patient and really, really understand them and what they need, and then work the system to get that done. Don't worry about the rest of it. You belong in this space. This has been waiting for you your entire life. The other part that we build in, and some of this is informed by performance science, again, my own experiences in athletics, and even just getting through medical school and maintaining high performances, the concept of, just you have to rest, right? Resilience isn't all about endurance alone. It's about recharging. It's about, and what I use, the concept and the term that I use, that I brought into my residency in internal medicine and now is the GME leader across all the programs, is the concept of diastole. So for your listeners that, that aren't familiar with, medical physiology, your heart has a cycle, and it consists of squeezing and refilling. The squeeze to pump blood to the rest of the body is systole. The refilling is diastole. Both are critical. If the heart has what we call diastolic dysfunction, maybe the heart is beating too fast, there's not enough time to refill, or the heart is stiff and it can't refill with enough blood, it's not going to perform. Diastole is critical because you need to refill to be able to go back to that work. But diastole is also a work consuming, it requires work. It's an energy consuming process. So how do we apply that in GME? We build in periods of rest. In my residency, when I was the program director before I took on this role, we eliminated nearly every 24-hour shift. I don't think you can sustain that, right? There are trade-offs there. We had to get better at handing off to the night team, all of that other stuff. But at the end of the day, it was worth it because you needed time to go back and do whatever you did outside of work to give you your energy back, but also to keep you human, because we need your whole human. Being a doctor isn't just about being a mechanic. There's that human element too. And if you're tired or you're burned out, you can't make those connections. You can't provide that emotional, psychosocial support that's such a critical part of being a doctor, no matter your specialty. So that's what, the concept of belonging, but then being really, really practical about building in rest and giving people time to remember who they are outside of work, so that they can come back and be that person again.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because in my world, we talk about work-life balance all the time, and the people in my life are sick of me saying work-life balance because I say it all the time. I'm not always the best example of it. That's a whole other conversation. But I am intentional about my time off, and I'm wondering how you've been able to sustain your young family and your incredible and demanding and successful career all at the same time. Was it always this way? Did you grow into that? What do you do to sustain that?
I've spent years not getting it right. So what was it about, Edison? I've discovered 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb or something like that. I don't have the quote perfect, but you get the idea. Look, I was as career first as anyone I knew, and that was how I was known. And I took pride in that, and they were like, Jim's a smart guy, but boy, he works really, really hard. And that was my identity as a baseball player. I had limited physical gifts, but I made the most of them, and I really took pride in that. And I would say that carried well into my early days of, being a spouse and being a father as well. And I wish, honestly, that I had a few of those years back. Honestly, I understand now kind of that momentum and how difficult it is to change when you're hardwired, when it's just you, that you're responsible for. And that's really all you needed to worry about. So I have grown in that capacity. I've developed that perspective. There have always been seasons where work is taking up more time, and then there's times where work doesn't need to take up more time. What I do differently now is that when work doesn't take up as much of my time, I'm not looking to fill that period, that extra found time with work. I'm using that intentionally to really invest back in my family or or just resting, doing stuff with them, working from home on a Friday when it's summer and the kids are around. Just being, I think it's the intentionality of it. I think it's the prioritization of it. And I'm no longer in the default of, I have 2 hours to kill. How can I, make progress on this paper? And when we're having family dinner, the phone is not there.
That is key
anymore, So we, and just the acceptance that my weekends are not my own right now. And by the way, that's good.
Yeah.
I get to say, look, I'm driving to Ohio for a softball tournament with Claire this weekend. Sorry. Unless something's on fire or somebody's going to jail, it can wait till Monday.
And we've taught ourselves that certain things are emergencies when they're not. Jail is an emergency.
Right.
Someone's life in your hands, that's an emergency.
Yep.
Most things are not an emergency. And I think that I've spoken to a lot of doctors, and I work a lot in the healthcare field. One of the things we talk about is that it's harder to have as much time off as you have on when you're in such a demanding career. But when you're off, you can be off. And that means even the hour that you're walking through the door, greeting your family, having dinner, sitting around the table, taking off your white jacket, whatever it is that you do in that time, and actually being present. You don't have to have the phone next to you and checking emails. If there's an emergency, that is a true emergency, they will find you. So it's not about the 50-50 split for me. It's about the time that you spend and how you spend it. And that's the balance. Work-life balance is not equal. It's equitable.
Right. So, and for me, Aris, there's no balance. There's balancing.
Yes.
We are all always in the process of balancing.
Right.
Like the title of Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, right? It's like we are becoming. We have not finished.
Yes.
Right? There is no work-life balance Zen state. If there is, and you feel like everything's in perfect balance, that's great. Take a mental picture of that, because it's not going to last.
It's not.
Something's going to come at it, and it's going to, that our responsibilities, our domains, our passions, our loves, they don't respect all of the other boundaries. There will be times where they all converge. Sometimes I'm the busiest at work at the worst possible time. Like my kid's having a crisis at the same time, and it's like, this is not under my control. You do the best you can. And look, this is something that it's not like I'm going to shout this from the rooftops, but quite honestly, sometimes you need to just be work and keep moving. Because something else needs you more. And the other part is this is really important. Trusting other people. Getting back to the team component. Part of why I worked so very hard at the very beginning in this role was building a team that I could trust. And yeah, that first year you really didn't feel comfortable going on vacation. But right now I've got people around me who know how I think, who know what's important to me, who know what's important to us. We've got a shared mission, and I can trust them to make decisions. Like, I've learned also it's not in my best interest, nor is it in their best interest to micromanage. Sometimes I have to let that go. And that's what they want, too.
Yeah,
like,
that's a huge lesson. It's good for everyone.
They want me to be gone. They want me to be gone. They like when I'm off for a week. I like to think that I'm good to work for or work with, I'm supportive, but like, I'm not always the easiest to work with. I have very high standards, maybe they need a break. So do I. They need a break from me. That has to be part of it.
Everyone needs a break. So
100%.
You have spoken to me a little bit offline, and I'd love you to share with our listeners about the role of meditation and prayer in your balancing and in your identity and in your philosophy on life. I think it's really important.
Yeah, thank you for that. For me, it has been the single habit that I have rebuilt in this decade of my life that has borne just the most fruit. I have learned so much just from the experience of challenging myself to block everything out and just focus on one thing, and to embrace the quiet, to know that sometimes it's really good to be bored and to just let go and to breathe and to really be in the present. And when I'm doing, I guess what is it? When I'm doing just straight meditation, I use the Calm app, by the way, like, disclosure, no, I don't have stock in Calm, whatever works for you, gang, use it. But 10 to 15 minutes of quiet, just peaceful meditation where my home base is the breath. And as long as I'm breathing, I'm okay. And it has also taught me a lot around, okay, you can't control what thoughts pop into your head, but you can control how much oxygen you give them, right? And this concept of think of thoughts as clouds and they will pass if you don't engage with them, and they will, and so that's been really, really effective. And the part that, a lot of my prayer is meditative prayer. I'm Catholic. A Catholic tradition prayer method is what they call Lectio Divina, which is very similar to just doing a meditation on one specific line of scripture, right? And that will be your mantra, that will be your home base instead of focusing on your breath or whatever. And I have drawn great comfort, but also way better discipline and wisdom in what I can control, and letting your higher power, whatever your spirituality, says to you, letting the universe take care of that other stuff. It has reaffirmed and enhanced a belief that I have, sincere belief that I have, that because I belong here, because I belong as a human, the universe ultimately is working for the greater good. Ultimately, Martin Luther King said, the arc is long, but it's bending towards justice, right? It may not be there immediately, but you have to trust that the world is working out for us all, and you just got to let that stuff go. So one of the, really a good line that I go back to, again, for Christians, it's in the Gospel of Matthew. The line is something like, never has anybody through worry added one day to their life.
Yes.
And so if you just continue, you spend 15 minutes at the beginning of your day really just focusing on that, or 15 minutes at the end of your day, if you're the person like me too, who sits up in the middle of the night saying, "Oh my God, I forgot to replete the potassium," it's over.
Yes.
Like, and then your night is screwed, right?
Yeah.
But sleep is so important. Rest is so important. If you can it's just 10, 15 minutes a day, right? But really it is around, for me, it is around the crux of the Serenity Prayer, right? You have to accept what you cannot change. You have to dive in and get into the arena to make a difference where you can. And you need to be able to understand which is which. Because so much of the trouble we get into as humans and as professionals is confusing one for the other.
It's so true. And I've run into so much resistance in, I don't want to say trying to convince, but in suggesting meditation to definitely to clients, as a mentor, to friends. And I hear a lot of excuses. I hear, "Oh, I can't sit still. I can't quiet my mind. I can't this and I can't that." And that analogy of the clouds, of course, I use that as well, because the goal isn't to completely clear your mind of everything. I think that the idea, especially for someone like me, is to get comfortable with sitting with your thoughts.
Yep.
And sure, I try to concentrate on other things. I have a mantra, or I'm using guided meditation through apps, or sometimes I read something beautiful. I think about that. Whatever it is, it could be moving meditation. It could be a beautiful morning walk, or at the end of the day, or sitting with nature, whatever it is for you.
That's great.
And being okay with the fact that the goal isn't to clear your mind. The goal is to sit in the moment. When your to-do list comes in, acknowledge it.
Yep.
It's here. We know. I have to record a podcast. I have 2 clients this afternoon. I have to send out a contract. I have to do this and that. Got it. Okay. Back to where we were. Hearing the birds, feeling the breeze. And it really is a proven practice. I sometimes really struggle convincing people to just give it a try, because it does take more than once or twice or even 5 times to get into it. It's a commitment.
100%. And in my own experience, Reese, the book, and again, no financial conflicts of interest, but when I started thinking about would meditation work for me was when, my wife actually told me about Dan Harris, the ABC journalist, and his experiences. And he's got that famous moment where he basically had a panic attack in the middle of his broadcast, and for the perfectionists in all of us, it's like, oh my God, that is just the worst case scenario. And so I read his book, 10% Happier. I read it years ago, and I was just like, it's probably not for me. But if it works for this dude, I don't know. I'll think about it. And it wasn't like reading that book jump-started me into meditation. But it did change me from like that stages of change being what they call pre-contemplative to contemplative about it. And then as life went on and I got hit by some, circumstances and the ebb and flow of my own mental health cycle, and I really had tried everything else and I gave it a shot and I stuck with it. I made a decision that I was going to give it a couple of months, and it became easier.
It does. And pleasurable and soothing, and the whole neuroplasticity argument, evidence. There is no doubt I will continue plugging and pushing it, and always looking for ways to help people work through the resistance, because it is worth it.
And now when there's a day where I can't.
You feel a difference.
I definitely feel a difference. I definitely feel a difference.
Yeah. If your children were listening to this 20 years from now, what would you want them to take away?
Well, obviously that and I try my very best to tell them this as often as I can, now I have, adolescence, and so that's met with
It works against you.
Of varying degrees of receptiveness depending on the day.
Yes.
But I do want them to know that, a huge part of what, just maybe the biggest part of what I love about my life is to be there for them and to watch them grow and a little bit live vicariously through them, in that I love that they love some stuff that I love, but I also love that I'm able to learn about stuff that they love that is new to me. So it's both, but I also hope that they are, they're viewing in me that I live, my life not just for the, for the awards or the recognition, right? So, all right, so I'm a Yinzer. You're not going to get out of this hour without a Fred Rogers quote, right? But one of the ones that I find that resonates most with me is one that he delivered during that really famous Dartmouth commencement address, like 25 years ago. It's something like, it's not the honors and the prizes and the fancy outsides or trappings of life that nourish us. It's the knowing we can be trusted. It's the knowing we don't have to fear the truth. It's knowing that the bedrock of our existence is good stuff. The awards, the recognitions, they're great. They're the candy, they're the dessert, they're the cherry on top. But for me, what has made life worth living is the knowledge that when the chips are down and something is really important, that people grant me the extreme privilege of being able to help them through that. That's what makes life meaningful for me. And what I have found, especially just in the last few years, is that that's just as meaningful outside of work, and probably more meaningful in the long run, because we're all going to be done with work someday, but in this form. But most of us still have a lot of life to live after we've retired, and you still need to have meaning. You still want to make a difference, right? And so there's just so many different ways to make a difference for other people in this life. And I hope that 20 years from now, or next week when they hear this, I want them to say, yeah, I saw that from Dad. I saw that. He made a difference for me, and I'm proud he made a difference for others. Because what I've learned from them, they need to know this already, and I do tell them this, is that their capacity they've just expanded my capacity for joy. I don't know that I ever really experienced joy, until I saw, like, my kids experiencing joy. Winning awards and, like, winning baseball games and getting, high honors and academic All-America, all of those things that were accomplishments that I'm enormously proud of. Don't get me wrong. Like, I still, that stuff is still on my walls.
Yes, but there's nothing like your children's joy and happiness. There's just nothing that fills my heart more. Being a mother is the most important thing to me.
Yeah. And I'm excited and maybe they don't need to necessarily have kids of their own, but I'm really excited for them not just to discover, like, the work that they want to do, but I want them to also discover the people that they want to be that for too. Yes. Whatever that looks like for them. I'm all in. This is like, I'm like at the top of the roller coaster right now, and it's going to be a fun ride. And I think that, 35-year-old me wouldn't have been this psyched about it. So.
Well, you talk about being a Yinzer. I talk about being a nomad. For better or worse, I've lived in so many different places, 3 different countries, different cities, and one of the things, if not the thing I cherish the most, is meeting amazing people who have had such an impact on my life, and you are truly an extraordinary human being. I am so grateful to our mutual friend Don. Shout out to Don for introducing us.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to so much more. I can't thank you enough for being here today, but I'm not letting you go yet.
Okay. Thank you. This has been a blast.
This is such an honor. I have a lightning round of some questions you haven't heard before. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go.
Here we go.
I'm
Number
psyched.
1. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
Well, in the classic sense, I am very much introverted in that I do very much enjoy interactions with other people, but they do take a lot of energy. I have to recharge after spending time, especially in big groups. I do love interactions like this, one-on-one. I get a great deal. I'm usually usually energized by this kind of thing, but but I surprise people all the time when I tell them I'm an introvert.
That is something that we share.
I'm a chameleon.
And that's called an ambivert.
Okay.
So you have a social battery. It's depleted when it's depleted, and you don't necessarily need to get energy off of others, and you do need to spend time alone. So it's kind of a combo, but you described me to a T.
It sounds like me as well, for sure.
What's a job you'd be terrible at?
Oh. Gosh, anything handy. I come from a long line of stagehands on my mom's side of the family, all stage carpenters, incredibly creative but also practical, built stage sets like from scratch. A funny story, I was coming into medical school intending to be an orthopedic surgeon because of my experiences in athletics. I wanted to do sports medicine, and that was off the table immediately because I can't swing a hammer for shit.
That kind of surprises me, but okay, I believe you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is honestly dishonesty, or not even the intent of deceiving, but just not being transparent, not paying me or others the respect that they can handle the truth.
That's a good one, Dr. Reilly. If you could give your first day on the job self one sentence of advice, going either all the way back to Penn to residency or to any of your subsequent jobs, what would it be?
Believe that you are where you're supposed to be, and it's gonna be great.
What's something your job has taught you about human nature? What hasn't it taught you?
Yeah, I know. I think that it can be very easy to become cynical when you have to deal with some of the stuff that I have to.
Yeah.
But actually, what it has taught me is it's reinforced my belief coming in is that people really do want to do good. Mm-hmm. Now, they may have a distorted picture of what that is, but people really do want to do good.
What's a belief about success that you held and no longer hold?
Success is no longer, for me, necessarily status. It's way less of what I think of when I think of success now. At the beginning, when I saw the CEO, the CMO, right? Like, that was the pinnacle. That's where I wanted to be. The closer I am to that level, I recognize that even the best of them in that role, they don't even hold that as an important marker of success. What is an important marker of success? I think making a difference. Mm-hmm. I think for me it's impact. I think it's how is the world different? It's stewardship. It's just this acknowledgement that none of us is getting out alive, and the job is really to just make it better and leave it better than you found it. Whatever that looks like on that day. I love that. Just do that job. Yep, just do that job that day.
So if you weren't doing this, what parallel life would you be living?
I would be in professional baseball in some capacity. I would have loved to have played. I do think that it became apparent collegiately about halfway through that I had hit my ceiling and wasn't projecting to be a major league talent as a player. But I would have gone into coaching. I would have gone into umpiring, potentially. Those would have been really, really good fits for me. And I do think that if I hadn't started my family and gotten married and found the love of my life so young, and I had a little bit more freedom to hang in there a little longer, I think I might have started down that path and seen where it took me. But I have no regrets about that.
I didn't think you did.
All.
I didn't think so. If you had 1 more hour a day, how would you spend it?
Honestly, like probably watching TV, because that's the one thing, like reading or watching TV, because that's, with all of this other stuff, that's the part I don't fit in. Like the entertainment piece of it. I'd sit on the couch with Beth and we'd watch a show. I think that's what I would do.
Certainly relaxing.
Or I might just sleep.
Or sleep.
Yeah. Or I might sleep.
What's one thing you hope people remember about you, career aside?
That I care. That I care about people. That I, obviously am not, have not been, will not be perfect. But I always want the best for people.
And here's the final one before we wrap.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to ask me?
That's a great
I figure
question.
I'm always putting people in the hot seat, so I've worked this question in because it's only fair, and then I feel the dread coming as soon as I ask it, but go ahead.
Okay, what's your favorite, hobby?
Reading, for sure.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time reading, and my preference is reading outdoors on my porch with my flowers and the birds and the light breeze. That is absolutely my favorite way to spend time at home. But I love and I get very recharged from being with my very close friends and family. And I love travel. And we make that a priority. I like seeing other places, experiencing other cultures, other foods. I love getting lost. I don't worry about that. I don't have any travel anxiety, and it is a priority. It's something that my husband and I have always prioritized since the beginning of our relationship, and that has stuck.
Good for you. I'm a homebody. I do have travel anxiety, so I admire that. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for all of your words of wisdom and for everything that you do for so many people on a daily basis.
I was just completely honored and floored that you invited me, Reese. This has been the best hour in recent memory, and sincerely, I hope that some of this helps your listeners. I really just want to be helpful, and this has been so much fun doing it.
And I'm sure that it will be. Thank you again.
My pleasure.
And that's a wrap. If you like this episode, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and share the love. You can always reach out to me through my website, ariseclappercoachingandconsulting.com.